As electrical and telecommunications infrastructure becomes more developed and widespread in the modern world, there have been concerns raised by those with electromagnetic, or EM, hypersensitivity that the EM fields are impacting their health and well-being.
What is electromagnetic hypersensitivity?
Before we answer that, we first need to discuss what EM fields are. EM fields are the combination of electric fields and magnetic fields. Both are the result of electrical charges. Electric fields are the result of the difference in electric charge between 2 points, while magnetic fields come from the movement of electric charges. Common sources of EM fields are the electrical grid and telecommunication devices. EM hypersensitivity is a condition where non-specific symptoms are attributed to exposure to EM fields.
What causes electromagnetic hypersensitivity?
A paper published in the Environmental Health journal has conducted a review of the literature on explanatory hypotheses for EM hypersensitivity. There are three main hypotheses.
The electromagnetic hypothesis.
This hypothesis proposes that EM hypersensitivity is caused by EM field exposure. This is supported by the fact that those with EM hypersensitivity blame EM fields, and these attributions are in line with the increase of exposure to EM fields of the general population. However, there are some severe limitations of this hypothesis. There is a low biophysical plausibility of the hypothesis. The symptoms experienced don't match the known health consequences of exposure, and exposure levels in daily environments are far too low to cause health consequences. This is further compounded by the failure of experimental studies to show that those with EM hypersensitivity can tell when they are exposed to EM fields.
The cognitive hypothesis.
This hypothesis proposes that the symptoms of individuals with EM hypersensitivity are caused by the nocebo response. In other words, because the individuals believe that EM fields are harmful, they experience symptoms when they believe they are exposed to EM fields. This hypothesis is supported by the results from experimental and environmental studies, where the reaction of individuals with EM hypersensitivity is correlated with their perceived exposure. Furthermore, this hypothesis provides a comprehensive model of EM hypersensitivity. However, there are a few limitations to this hypothesis, namely that the experimental results could also be interpreted as showing that the nocebo response can be induced experimentally and is not specific to EM hypersensitivity. Another limitation is that this hypothesis cannot explain why individuals with EM hypersensitivity began to believe that EM fields are harmful. Additionally, this hypothesis doesn't match the trajectories and experiences of individuals with EM hypersensitivity, as the individuals generally have an illness before EM hypersensitivity appears as an explanation.
The attributive hypothesis.
This hypothesis proposes that individuals with EM hypersensitivity have pre-existing conditions that they attribute to exposure to EM fields, making them easier to cope with. Unlike the cognitive hypothesis, this is supported by the trajectories of individuals with EM hypersensitivity. Additionally, it is similar to other functional somatic disorders, that is, other illnesses that have no observable cause, both in symptoms and in demographics. This hypothesis also has a few drawbacks. First is the weakness of the qualitative methods used in the trajectory studies, and the second is the issue regarding why so few of those experiencing medically unexplained symptoms diagnose themselves with EM hypersensitivity.